conversation about even how you look. I mean, certainly for most of us, we want to be comfortable in our skin and like how we look. That's different for everyone. But the bigger conversation here is physical health. I mean, right?
Yeah, we've said over and over again that in order for you to have the life that you want, like, let's face it, and I just heard this, there's a funny meme going around from that movie is it Over 40? Or This Is 40? I just watched it, but she was like, 40 to 60 is the best time of our lives. And we're going to need to start working out. And she goes through all this list. We're going to need to start going to the therapist. And she goes, she's talking to her husband. And then she looks up, she's like, your eyes are glassing over. Because it shouldn't be a laundry list of things to do. Guys, we get it. We know, but that's the thing. The more energy you have, the more physically sound you are, the more energy
100%.
resources you have left over to create versus just surviving, right?
Yeah.
So that's the difference. Are you thriving or are you just surviving?
Yeah, 100%. And especially, this is the thing during the holiday season, we tend to let things go, which I will too. I'm not going to say that I stay the course the whole holiday season because that's part of the fun of the holidays, but how can we do it in the best way possible? And are there some tips, which we do have, to help you stay on track? Just because here's the thing, I know for myself, if it doesn't hit me during the holiday, I hit January 1st or that first week of January, and I'm just feeling wiped out.
Yeah.
Like the blahs coming down off the emotional high, the holidays feeling a little bit like blue. And it's like, some of that is, because the holiday's over and it was all the fun. But a lot of that, I'm convinced, is because we don't treat our bodies well. We're eating things that we shouldn't be eating. We're inflamed. And it's just a recipe for... Yeah. And we don't want to start the new year off like that. We want to start it off well.
And that's where you end up. You slide 100%. Into January, just like, a mess, basically. Yes. A hot mess.
Exactly.
Yeah. And, there's something you mentioned, don't let it all go for the holidays or, but there is something beautiful about those cycles, those ebbs and flows where, certain times of the year, you're going a little bit harder into your physical health with being more regimented. And then there's other times of the years where you need to let it go because most of us aren't wired to have that kind of discipline where we can just maintain a high level of just perfection or discipline with how we eat day in, day out. Mm-hmm. Some of you are, and man, that's a gift. So I hope you're grateful for that.
Yeah.
But most of us need that time and space to let it go a little bit so that when we come back in January, we are more grateful for our proactivity and the things we do the rest of the year that make a difference.
Right. So that's an interesting conversation because I feel that way. And I feel like when I have a day that I just eat what I want or a period of time, like maybe it's the summer, I tend to be a little lax, the holiday, whatever it is, it makes it easier for me to stay on purpose. But I was just having this conversation with my accountability group and they were saying they have to go all in all the time, or because if they take, and this is where we're all different, if they take just one step off, it just is like, oh, well, and they just have so much trouble getting back, course correcting. So I think it's a little different for each person.
I don't know if it should be that hard.
It shouldn't.
Maybe it shouldn't be that hard. Then are you doing it for the right reasons? Are you doing it just because you are like, why is it that hard to live your life? That's my question.
That's a fair point.
That's not a criticism on anybody.
Oh, no.
But like, hopefully you get the loving point out of that, which is, some of these things, if you have enough leverage on it, they should just be things that you want to do because they make you feel so good. Right.
Right. 100%.
I will say that the cleaner that you are and the healthier that you are, the more, if you swing the pendulum to the other side, the more that you will be effective. It's that hormesis or hormetic factor, right? So hormesis, a good way to explain that in non-scientific terms is what doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
Isn't that a song?
Yeah, it is. Kelly Clarkson. But hormetic stress is little daily things like that's why cold showers are one of the reasons why cold showers, because they put your body in a state of like beneficial stress that then stimulate the immune system. They boost, your blood factors, just different things. So a little bit of hormesis is, okay.
It's good.
But yeah, it really is. It's really good. But if you are so clean to one side, you're just going to just be mindful because if you're like me, you're like an all or nothing. And then as long as you're contributing it back, like, because food changes what you're doing in December 15th or 16th at a holiday party, showing up on January 1st. We don't all make that connection that it's related. So I want you to know, more than likely, right? That's our point, is it's related to how you eat what you did in the last couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And it doesn't necessarily show up right in that instant. Like I work with so many clients, they're like, yeah, but gluten doesn't bother me. I'm like, well, it doesn't bother me either. But what happens are some cellular changes that then start to snowball when it's present in your system, and it affects.
Well, and here's the thing, since you brought up gluten, and it's a good time to have the conversation because we're heading into the holidays, and you probably know, if you don't, gluten is a protein that's in wheat and anything that's made with wheat, right? That can be irritating. So it's going to be in all your cookies, all your pot, like everything that's happening this holiday season.
Anything pastas, with flour.
Everything with flour, anything with thickenings that usually has flour, soy sauces.
Ketchups, even barbecue sauce.
Yeah, all of it. But a lot of people might say, and we don't need to spend too much time here, but like, oh, but it doesn't bother me. Like my digestion is fine. There's no issue. Well, gluten can affect people in inflammatory ways outside of your digestive tract.
Yes.
And that can show up in your joints. If you're feeling achy or you have joint pain, it can show up on your skin. It can show up in a myriad of ways. It can affect your hormones. For me, the inflammation shows up in my brain. Like I have such a hard time like it just wrecks me. Like, so that's why I like stay on the straight and narrow, because I know if I veer, I'm going to have some problems for myself.
Right. So your threshold, you're at a different place. You're at a different place health-wise, where your threshold may be higher, less tolerance for that hormetic stress. But at the same time, you can fluctuate in that range.
Yeah.
Right. Over the holidays. That's what I'm trying to say.
So
it's not an exact science. You're not going to know. You're not often going to know what you can do until you realize what you can't do, because you wake up the next day and you're like, oh, brother.
Right. For me, that's one thing I don't veer on. But when you're talking about the stress and you're relating, like the hermetic stress, relating that to this topic of eating and holidays and whatever it is good it's not a bad thing for you to have a day where you eat outside the norm, because it presents a stress to your body in such a way that it can improve your metabolism. It can just ramp you up. And there's a lot of research behind that, and specialists that talk about that, right? To have a day where you go a little off course and maybe you eat pretty low carb, for you, that doesn't have to look like me. I'm not going to go and eat all the gluten, but maybe I stay fairly low carb during the week. But I'm going to a holiday party, or now the weekend's here, and I'm going to have some gluten-free pasta. I'm going to up my carbs. I'm going to have some pancakes, like whatever that looks like for me. I might not do that day in and day out, but I'm going to let those things slide. I know my framework. I know where there are non-negotiables for me. That might not be for you or you guys listening, but that's where we're talking about. Again, this can be not just because it helps you stay on course if you give yourself some lax, but also it's not a bad thing for your overall health and metabolism.
Yeah. So let's talk about those.